things about the way that this is going to be set up. Tomorrow's part 1, it's 40 points, and then on Friday is going to be part 2, it's 30 points. So the whole thing together obviously is going to be 70. I think I mentioned this to you before, but just a reminder, it will go into progress book as like a regular semester grade. So you'll have a column 1 for part 1, column for part 2. It's not that they'll get scored and then saved with your final exam, and together that'll end up being 10% of your grade or anything like that. It's just going to go in the progress book as being ultimately 7 points. It is not Scantron, so anything that you are doing is going to be writing. There could still be matching and things like that, but predominantly, especially tomorrow, it's going to be mostly writing things out. It could be doing a short answer, it could be a definition, similar to what are Aristotle's 5 ethical appeals and explain them. So you might have to write ethos, pathos, logos, and then get a definition for it. It could have something like define ethos, and then you write a definition for it along those lines. Tomorrow, you will definitely have things on Toolman model, logical fallacies, eloquence, all of those things. Friday, you will definitely have things on logical fallacies, Toolman model, eloquence. So it's not that it's going to be tomorrow logical fallacies, eloquence, Friday everything else. Both tomorrow and Friday, a little bit of everything kind of going on. But the setups of the two will be a little bit different. So it's not going to be like doing the same kind of question over and over and over again. The nice thing about it not being multiple choice or Scantron is you do have the ability for partial credit for things. So, you could have an area where here's an example of a logical fallacy. So here's a sentence that has a logical fallacy. Identify the logical fallacy and explain why it is a fallacy. You might be able to read it and go, okay, I know there's something going on here, and you can explain what the problem is, but for whatever reason, you can't just think of the term slippery slope. So you're going domino effect. It's kind of, making someone afraid of something, worst case scenario. You can still get partial credit for the explanation being correct, but not being able to come up with the correct term. So it's not meant to be mind-numbing. It's going to kill grades or anything like that. I think the majority of people do probably very well with it. I don't really see anyone running into any kind of issue that's going to be overly problematic. But make sure you do go over the review packet. It'll help you put you in a pretty good spot moving forward. Any questions, at least about that kind of stuff? Pen, pencil, doesn't matter to me which you use when you take it. Whatever's going to work better for you. Yeah, we'll need. We'll make it work. Study all that kind of stuff. And all that really means is I'm not going to pass back people's midterms until we have everyone that's taken. Any other questions? There's not really a picture drawing part, so yeah, take it. Part 3. All right, so all we're going to do, so much from a review standpoint, is we're basically just going to go around the room running through as much stuff as we possibly can, especially the older things, to just kind of recap everything that we have. So, Isaac, for the first one, identify, define 5 rhetorical appeals. Pick one. Which one you want to tell us about? Okay. So we got appeal to logic or reasoning taking place with logos. Okay, Sarah, one of them.
Pathos, that's like
Mr. Kane, you should not give me a TWA today, 5th period, because I had an 8-push test today, and I got a physics something and other stuff going on. So a lot of things I don't think it's a good idea. Would be more of logos. Pathos, please don't give me the TWA. I beg you. I will give you $35,000. I'd have to listen to that. Talk a little bit. But that's going to be certainly more of an emotional appeal. So for pathos is going to be in the absence of reasoning, you're going for an emotional appeal taking place. Nick, what's another one?
Ethos, it's credibility of the author.
Okay, yep, so source, credibility. if there's an area where I'd have a little bit of concern going in, it would be that people would get these two mixed up, because a lot of folks will go ethos E, emotional appeal. So I don't know if you want to think of this as being more of a passionate appeal, so that you then think of pathos with the P. But that's probably the most common mistake, is that people would see the E in ethos, the E in emotional, and put those two things together. So just kind of keep an eye on that one. Alex, of the other two,
Tell it, purpose, and attitude of the speech.
okay.
Setting title, place of the speech.
So purpose and attitude, and then Kairos is the setting. Okay. Any questions about any of those things? Haley, how about for Aristotle? What are 4 reasons for argument?
Means of defense.
Okay, that would be one of them.
You want me to say all 4?
Let's go 2.
See both sides.
Okay, and Kaylin, the last 2.
Prevent fraud and injustice and
For public, I guess I should put. And if you recall, we said in today's current world, probably a courtroom would be the best place to see all of these things taking place. Means of defense, if you're the one being prosecuted, you can defend yourself. If you are being unjustly prosecuted, you can try to prevent fraud and injustice, see both sides of an issue, defense versus prosecution, and then most trials are public, so you would have instruction for the public so they could see how the judicial system works, the legal system within the United States. So identifying components of the Toolman model, Sierra, any of those 3, claim, data, warrant.
claim.
It's the claim. So the point of an argument. Alright. Data grounds or warrant, Billy?
It's like proof.
Which one?
Data grounds.
Okay. Proof or evidence. And then warrant, reasoning, Taylor.
I say it connects to the claim and grounds.
Yeah, and really I kind of said the word there, reasoning connects claim to grounds. Billy, what was your claim about your TWA 5th period? I don't want one. Why don't you want one? What's your proof? A push test, physics stuff, not a good day, reasoning, all of these things are going to put me in a bad spot moving forward with my TWA.
You're still not speaking.
Trevor, 3 basic types of claims would be one of them. Alright, so we got something that is going to be fact-based. So any kind of claim with a fact, it could be something like, it rained yesterday. How do you know? There's water in my rain gauge. Sure, maybe Mr. Kane came over and dumped it in there, but you are making a claim about some kind of event that did happen. Also could be scientific, in the sense of the way the molecules can get broken down and whatnot, but you have an argument based on fact. Gigi, what would be another kind? Okay. Policy, and so this is going to be more like legislation. The passing of a law is going to be a policy kind of claim. Beginning on April 1st, 2016, all North Hill students will be able to, after school. Yeah, like during class, whatnot, that would be legislation. So there's a change to policy taking place. And then the last one, Tyler.
Judgment or value.
Yep. Which basically means opinion. Pluto has clouds, it should be a planet, it's just like Earth, give it some love. Policy. Or judgment, I'm sorry. Alright, grounds grounds can be coming from 3 categories. Will, give us one.
Backing.
Alright. No.
Evidence.
Which is, I think, what he might have been thinking with backing, but yeah, some kind of like physical evidence that would be taking place. So we got some kind of physical evidence or proof. Okay. Nicole, you got another?
Source credibility.
All right, source credibility. Billy, what did Sarah say about the TWA? Do you consider her to be a credible source? Okay, so you're not really at this point going, might still be a quiz as opposed to a TWA, or it could be an easy TWA.
Yeah.
What about whatever David tells you?
I believe, yeah.
You will?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought you said you wouldn't earlier.
Well, he'll practice.
Okay. So source credibility for you because you know you'll be able to get the truth out somehow. All right. And then last one, Taylor.
Analysis and reasoning.
All right, analysis and reasoning.
But I can't relate.
And really logic is the way that we can kind of sum that up as well. So grounds, your evidence can be physical proof, credibility of where you're getting information, and also some analysis, reasoning, a little bit of logic kind of coming in from it. All right. Any questions about those? Mark, how about modality?
It's the degree of certainty.
All right. Words like probably, most of the time, never, those would be modality type terms. Rebuttals, Sam?
Exceptions to the claim.
Okay.
Intervening factors.
This can also be a tricky term for some folks on a midterm, not because you're going to necessarily forget rebuttals and it's such a strange concept. And again, exceptions to the claim. So you're not arguing against yourself, but you're going, you know what, the Pirates I think will still make the playoffs in 2016. However, if they get any significant injuries of more than 30 games to any of their starters, all bets are off at that point. You would want to revisit it. The issue that could kind of come up, based on speeches that we have done, a lot of time when you hear the word rebuttal, what do you think of? Not an exception, but more of a counter argument. So with means to a Toolman model, it would be an exception. It would not be the counter argument as to when you go, I'm generally going to give a rebuttal to an argument. Will, you said backing earlier. That would also go into the Toolman model where that's kind of like additional warrant reasoning, kind of going on with it. Any questions about Toolman model stuff? All right. Heather, it looks like we're to you. 4 core concepts for winning a debate. What would be one of those?
Do with the argument.
All right. That one usually helps. And if you had to write these out or anything on a midterm, it's not that they have to go in any particular order, so whether or no the argument is 1, 2, 3, or 4 would make no difference. Brandon?
Convince the judges.
Convince the judges. Shannon?
Beware of your opponent.
Beware of the opponent. And Isaac, come back to you. Do you know yourself? Yeah, so this could be strengths and weaknesses. You remember the video clip that we watched at the beginning of the semester? Stephen Colbert interviewing the congressman from Georgia. That was not a time where clearly he knew himself and what his strengths or weaknesses were going to be going into that argument. So these would be the 4 things. Again, order makes absolutely no difference whatsoever. Okay. All right, logical fallacies. Sarah, we'll give you some options. 9 through 13. Tell us about one of them.
Okay, so slippery slope. One event sets off a chain reaction of desirable events.
Okay. So a chain reaction domino effect, the apocalypse is among us kind of thing taking place. All right, bad things. Nick.
Strong.
All right, Scarecrow.
Misrepresenting someone's argument to make it easier to examine.
What'd you put for your example for that one?
Or you could say like the Stephen Colbert misrepresented everything the congressman said.
So when he was doing the thing, how are we going to balance the budget? What are we cuts? What are we going to make? First thing the guy said was Department of Education. I said, okay, let's dig deeper. What else? And he said social security. You want to cut Social Security? No, I don't want to cut. Well, you just said you want to cut Social Security. So taking what someone is saying and trying to misrepresent it. Could also do things if a person goes, one of the things that we were looking at also with balancing the budget as well, we're putting too much money into the Department of Defense, let's relocate some of those funds or reallocate them. Well, you want our country to be attacked by other people, you don't want us to be defenseless. You're taking something that a person has said and you're turning it around, you're twisting it. This is how gossip begins. Someone says something innocent, Sierra takes it, turns it around, runs with it, and now we have major problems on our hands. Alex, 11 through 13.
False analogy.
Okay?
Finding one thing that makes two different things similar.
All right. So you find one similarity. We call this the sibling effect. And then you assume that that means that they are the same in all characteristics, ways, and all that kind of stuff. So Billy, hate that kid. Hi, Sam. Oh, you're related.
For strongman, I kind of had it like where you have attack person, not really their argument. So like, I said like, I said something like, you support welfare programs, do I smell communist? So is that like,
You're
attacking them or like just their
well, most of these are going to kind of overlap one another a little bit. Well, I would say that would still be a straw man. I wouldn't say you're going ad hominem yet. Like ad hominem is the one where you're really attacking a person. Don't listen to anything Trevor says. He kicked me in the shins once. Where you're discrediting someone solely based off an action that is completely disconnected from any kind of argument. You said it's you support welfare programs. I smell communist. Is basically the way it goes. Welfare programs are social programs where you are doing things to help, quote unquote, the greater good. And so that is where, people go, Bernie Sanders, communist, socialist, where you're taking, okay, you support this program, therefore you must be a socialist, communist, something like that. And that's where that straw man argument is coming from. So that one would still work. You might be doing a personal attack by going, I smell communist, but it is, I'm going to use this in quotes, related to the argument that was being presented, though. That would be like, you like John Steinbeck? Socialist propaganda, taking place that, you must be in favor of all that stuff as well. Kelly, how about of the other two we got? Okay. And do you remember which two words tend to show up a lot of the time in black and white reasoning? Yeah. And so the big thing is that you have generally simplified a complex issue to two outcomes. Either you do this or you do that. Now again, there can be some situations where it is an either or. Either you give me $10 or I will punch you in the face. That might only be two possible outcomes that could take place. But when it comes to things like, politics and whatnot, generally you can't simplify it to two things. Either you are going to vote Democrat or you want You don't have an option, circular reasoning.
Okay, simply assuming that the conclusion is true in the premises does not constitute evidence by conclusion.
It's awfully wordy. What's that mean?
It's actually an example, like I don't know what it means either.
That's your example?
Yes, no, the one's like it is true because it is true, so therefore it is true.
Basically, you're using the argument to support itself. So if someone, and we might have used this in the notes, everyone believes in God because the belief of God is universal. Basically, what is it saying? Believes in God. Yeah, you're just basically restating the statement so that it tries to support itself. This is what Billy was doing on his A-push DBQ when he had to use all the sources and whatnot, and he couldn't come up with multiple reasons. So what did you do with your first reason? You restated it, but you used different words. And then you had to do that for the third one, so you restated it again. That tends to be circular reasoning. Begging the question is also the way that that'll get termed. But it's a circular argument where when you look at it, it's really an argument that is basically supporting itself. I need a character reference for my scholarship. So I am going to have Billy reference me. Why? How do we know Billy's worthwhile? Oh, I would give him a character reference. I think he's a pretty good guy. Basically, I am now supporting myself as a character reference by, that kind of statement.
So that's begging the question.
Begging the question is another term that, now that if it shows up on the midterm, it'll say circular, reasoning, circular argument. I won't use begging the question, but if you ever hear it, that's another term that could possibly show up. 14 to 18, Sierra, you pick.
Non-sequitur.
All right.
It's argument with conclusion doesn't
Literally just means does not follow. It does not make sense. Now, again, in your eyes, it might seem like it makes sense initially, but when you really kind of look at it from an argumentative standpoint, it does not make sense. I think we talked about you going to work and asking the boss for a raise. I need a raise. Why? Well, I'm coming around the corner. It's really expensive. Well, to you that might make sense, but you need to show that your work output, responsibility, actions, all those things at work merits a raise that would be taking place. Will, did you see the minimum wage news from UPMC? By 2021, all workers will make at least $15 an hour.
Was it 2020?
I think it was by 2021. Not minimum wage everywhere, but within UPMC in Pittsburgh, they said. So there's government spending. Okay, Billy, one of these other ones.
Red herring.
All right.
Evidence or arguments that are meant to be misleading.
Easter dinner, there were Brussels sprouts on the table. I did not touch them. Mother-in-law was mad. What did she say? And she did say it.
Oh, I don't know where they're gonna use that.
This was, she didn't say Africa, but she said they're starving people all throughout the world and you can't eat my Brussels sprouts. Said, red herring, not gonna eat them. Pass the mac and cheese. 16 to 18. Taylor.
Complex question is like no matter how you answer it, you're gonna lose.
Mm-hmm.
And then, for an example, I was like, if I look fat, you're stressed. Because if you say no, you're lying. If you say yes, it's like you're so fat. So. You're lying.
What if I say no and I'm not lying?
I mean, like, cause then
So
they
what are you
think that you're
supposed to
like,
say? Are you supposed to be like,
I think it looks really good on you.
It's okay, let's do the look
Or how about like Haley said, like, do you trust me? You
Yeah, and again, it certainly kind of depends on the circumstances that are taking place with the whole "do you trust me" thing or "don't you trust me." You know, if you're trying to, you know, extend a curfew or go someplace that mom and dad would not normally allow you to, "Don't you trust me?" "No, I don't trust you." Big argument. "Yes, I do trust you." "Then why won't you let me go?" You know, and those kinds of things. I think I told you the time that Addie asked me, "When is it okay to lie?" And I turned the radio up. Equivocation or bandwagon, Trevor?
Bandwagon.
All right.
Arguing blame based on the actions of others.
Okay, so it's, for the most part, it is following popular belief. Hence the idea of bandwagon fans. Other people now are fans of, you know, Syracuse in the NCAA tournament. So yes, I think they're going to win it all. North Carolina's going to trounce them. Yay. Equivocation.
Whenever you change what the word means to fit how you want it.
Yep, change or shift definition of a word. I think we did the whole hot dogs are better than nothing, nothing is better than steak, therefore hot dogs must be better than steak. You're shifting the term of the use of nothing. When you see arguments for like legalization of marijuana, people go, it's a natural substance and we have natural rights, so naturally we should be allowed to smoke the stuff. The use of the term nature and natural and all those kind of things is shifting from time to time. So it's usually, I wouldn't say normally not done out of mistake, but more as kind of like a little bit of an eloquence in a way to try to lure people to think that it should be okay. Mr. King, it's not natural to write essays in 40 minutes in class, so naturally we shouldn't do it.
What if this one has words that have like really different meanings? Like chump is extremely different. Like it means either be really, really happy or really, really sad. So what about that usage? Would that fall under that?
What's the term?
Chump.
I don't know, Chuff.
It's a verb. It means to either be really happy about something or be really sad about something.
If you're using, I mean, certainly you're going to have some words that can like mean multiple things, and if you're using them correctly, you could argue no. But if it's getting used the way that, you know, marijuana is a natural substance and we have natural rights as people, so we should be allowed. If you're using that as a way to manipulate the argument, then it would fall under the equivocation. But you know, if it's one of those things where, you know, depending how you use the word to, could mean to, or also, or going to a place, that's not necessarily going to be equivocation just because you're using those multiple terms. Alright, and then for getting into eloquence, Tyler, we're going to make you do the scheme.
You skipped a lot.
Wait, with it? Oh, do we have?
Yeah, I was gonna do number 19.
My fault. Well, you already knew them. Okay,
Which one am I doing?
whatever you want from 19 to 23.
Okay, I'll do 19.
Alright,
It's directed against a person rather than a position named in painting.
okay.
My example would be like the whole situation between Donald Trump and Ted Cruz.
Especially when it, you know, and you had the whole Twitter feud going on with, you know, you're bringing my wife into this, wait till I, you know, unload dirt on your wife and whatnot. And, you know, if you can't vote for Donald Trump, look at that hair.
Do you want this to be our first lady?
His hair has absolutely nothing to do with policy. Can't vote for Bernie Sanders. He's old.
He's the second
So Mark will go, he could theoretically die. Hey, anybody could die in office, you know, whatever. So the problem is if you attack an aspect of the person, again, in the absence of an argument that is taking place. Now, if a person says something that you think is absolutely terrible and stupid, then yes, that could be a reason not to vote for him or her based on the policies that they have said that they may or may not do. But to simply go, can't have, you know, and sadly, you would have people going, Hillary Clinton can't be president because she's a woman. That would be totally ad hominem. You're not looking at argument whatsoever. Mark, don't say that.
What did you
Anton, saying bad things about Hillary Clinton and women in general.
Are you serious?
I said, she's a criminal. Like saying it's to another.
I'm just saying things about Mark, just to say things about Mark. What's that?
Haley for president. Haley for president.
Okay, Shannon, I guess we're to you. 20 through 23, any of these?
Oh, Texas sharpshooters, like
Okay.
cherry picking data.
Mm-hmm.
And I had the example that like one study shows that the Earth is in an ice age, so global warming doesn't exist.
Okay.
Something like that.
And so you finding, yeah, and it tends to be statistic and beats of information. Over the weekend, NCAA tournament was going on. Mike Krzyzewski was in a news conference, and the question, I forget exactly how it was worded, but it was something along the lines of, do you realize your team is 0-4 in the NCAA tournament when you're playing in the Western time zone? How do you feel about that? And so basically he's setting up for it. You're going to lose because you're playing on the other side of the country. That would be an idea of Texas sharpshooter, where you're taking some kind of piece of information and you're trying to use that to connect a whole bunch of events. I've mentioned to people, because baseball season's coming up, baseball newscasters love stupid statistics. Mark is batting .417 on Thursdays in the month of May when there's a runner on first base, and it's a daytime game against a left-handed pitcher who has a mustache. Clearly, this is the guy we want up right now. So that's kind of more of cherry picking. You're taking little tidbits of information and trying to use it to benefit yourself. Faulty emotional appeal. This is going to be the use of pathos for you're using emotion in the lack of some kind of argument, reducing something that's totally absurd, and then, of course, Nicole's lovely little picture of me would be reductio ad Hitlerum. When it comes to the eloquence, because Belle's going to be ringing here pretty quickly, I think the main thing that you would really want to take a look at is make sure you are good with your A terms, because they can get somewhat confusing. Antimetaboly, anaphora, anadiplosis, assonance, and all those kinds of things. Are there any of those examples of eloquence that you have a question about? Oxymoron, don't worry about. We did not talk about it with the notes. I'm not going to throw that one in on the midterm.
I know. Oh my god.
I knew the word crowd last time.
Put it as extra credit.
Billy, I did tell first period that if you wrote I am what I am, I might give you a 2.
Just like I wrote solid or something.
What's their TWA? It's on Invisible Man.
Remember when you finished Invisible Man and there was that surprise TWA last year? And there was,
Yeah, that was terrible.
yeah, Shannon was there.
I was there. It was so bad. Like,
She was the first period.
yeah, because I sat right.
Colleen was originally in your class, and then she came over, and we sat her with the island and Mr. Toys over there. I don't remember your class having a redaction.
I don't remember who was in my class last year. Last year was a bit of a blur.
Well, you had Maureen and Brendan were the dominant. No, I just said, hey, anything can happen. Remember, Billy, source credibility.